I am so excited to welcome you today to the 2019 ConnectUS Small Business Conference and Expo. On behalf of Mayor Andrew J. Ginther and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, we are so excited to have you here today. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion is really all about supporting minority and women-owned businesses through our certification as well as our extensive outreach and engagement and our business development support of small businesses. We are here for you. Today's conference really is a culmination of Mayor Andrew Ginther's vision as well as the purpose of our office in really helping to bolster up our small minority and women-owned businesses to be competitive with our city contracting here at the City of Columbus, as well as expanding you beyond our borders and really making your visions for your business come to fruition. I am so excited to share this space today with so many of our partners who are also committed to this vision and this work, and who will have the opportunity to share the work that they're doing in their respective organizations today. We're so excited for today's events, which will include a number of workshops as well as an expo, and I encourage each and every one of you to take full advantage of those opportunities, network, meet other folks that you can begin to engage with around your businesses, and we hope that you will enjoy today's events. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you later. Now at this time, I'd like to bring up Council Member Shayla Favor, who will be representing our City Council today. Council Member?
Thank you, Director Brown. Good morning, everyone. I know it's early. Work with me. All right, sun is shining. Good morning. All right. My name is Shayla Favor, and on behalf of my colleagues at Columbus City Council, I want to welcome you to the ConnectUS Small Business Conference. I am honored to serve as the chair of the city's Public Service and Transportation, the Criminal Justice and Judiciary, and Housing committees. We have had several great events around small business in our community over the past few weeks, and I'm especially excited about this one as we prepare to take a closer look at the results and recommendations of the disparity study. While City Council continues to provide support to small business through initiatives like the Neighborhood Commercial Revitalization Interior Improvement Program, which was designed to encourage permanent improvements in the business district, or through the Rev 1 Ventures Program, which aims to attract and grow technology businesses in Columbus. We also acknowledge that there is much more work to be done to ensure that our small businesses and our women and minority-owned businesses are provided with the information and resources to thrive in Columbus. The fact is, Columbus is growing, and you all are a key component that has not only helped Columbus grow, but also play a major role in ensuring the success and the longevity of that growth. It's imperative that we work collaboratively to assess what the city and partner organizations have done in the past and what our small businesses and entrepreneurs need today to know where we need to go next. We are committed to creating a small business ecosystem in Columbus that streamlines interactions with city government. Just a few weeks ago, the Department of Public Service and Transportation held an event for minority and women-owned businesses to learn about upcoming projects and opportunities to do business with the City of Columbus. Folks were on hand to walk business owners through various divisions within the department, discuss the process of becoming a vendor, and responding to open bids with the city. This is how you start to improve the ecosystem, because real change must be direct and it must be intentional. We are working hard in Columbus to reduce poverty in our community and provide opportunities for all of our residents to make livable wages to support their families, and you all play a large role in ensuring that that is a reality for all of our residents. And so it is my personal charge and commitment to lean into this space and fight for changes and the implementation of new policies that will ensure that everyone in Columbus and in our community has the opportunity to get into the game and to benefit from the growth of Columbus. I'd like to thank Mayor Ginther, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and everyone who has helped to coordinate the Small Business Conference. It takes all of our agencies coming together to get this work done. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today to share, to collaborate, and to develop new ideas on behalf of all Columbus, Ohio families. Please enjoy your time here today, and I look forward to hearing more about what comes out of this conference. Thank you.
And now, here to deliver a few remarks on behalf of our event host, please welcome Leslie Cornathan, Sales Manager for the Greater Columbus Convention Center.
Good morning. I'm Leslie Cornathan, Sales Manager at the Greater Columbus Convention Center, managed by ASM Global. Welcome to our home and City of Columbus 2019 Connect Us Conference. We're glad you're here. We are proud to support Mayor Ginther, the City of Columbus, and their initiatives that support small business. Though we are one of the busiest convention centers in North America and a large complex measuring 1.8 million square feet, we are also strong supporters of small businesses. In fact, we have a number of small businesses in our South Cafe and Marketplace that are owned by women, minorities, and merchants who left their homelands to make successful new starts in our country. We are a willing collaborator with small business enterprises, whether it involves hosting your event or establishing a vendor relationship with us. When thinking about your future events, our beautifully renovated venue has perfect spaces of all sizes. Yes, we are known for large conventions and even larger sporting events. However, do keep in mind that your meetings, galas, town hall gatherings, celebrations, award banquets, dinner extravaganzas, and functions of all sizes will work wonderfully here as well. I am your Greater Columbus Convention Center sales contact, and I will have a table at the Business Expo. Come by and see me. I look forward to seeing you. We hope you enjoy your visit with us today and invite you to return often. Thank you.
Here to deliver remarks on behalf of our Platinum partner, Huntington, is Dr. Marlon Moore, Huntington's Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer.
Good morning, good morning. Huntington is pleased to be a sponsor for today's event. Really want to thank the mayor and the city of Columbus for taking the initiative to drive economic inclusion within Columbus. Research suggests that over 40% of consumers and business owners believe that economic inclusion will be a strategic business imperative moving forward. So we got the memo. 5 years ago, I think I stood on this very stage and shared that Huntington committed to 14% of its total diversity spend by the end of 2014. We exceeded that mark at 15%, but we didn't stop there. We set aggressive targets for all of our leadership team members, and at the end of last year, our total diversity spend was over 26%, but we didn't stop there. We were challenged by our supplier diversity manager, Elizabeth Lundstedt. Elizabeth, I know you're out there, just wave your hand so everybody can see you. She challenged me, which was a good thing. She said, Marlon, so 26%, that's phenomenal. It almost triples the industry average, but it's about economic inclusion. How are we making a difference in the communities that we serve? So I just want to share a few things and then I'll leave you. We published our first supplier diversity economic impact report for 2018. So the efforts of all of my colleagues at Huntington Bank led to over $265 million in contribution to the U.S. GDP, over 2,000 jobs supported in the communities that we serve, and over $113 million in wages supported with minority, women, veteran, and small businesses. And that led to over $88 million in taxes. So thank you. So we stand here as partners with the city of Columbus, eager to make change, eager to make a difference in our community. And so I encourage you all as business owners to stop by our booth, understand that relationships take time, but we are committed to building those relationships and driving a stronger inclusion community for us all. So thank you. Have a great day.
And now, please welcome our featured speakers for today's conversation. Mayor Andrew J. Ginther, Representative Joyce Beatty, Maggie Ferentz, Senior Vice President, Business Banking Credit, SBA, and Ops Director, Huntington, Mark Kane, President and CEO of Smoot Construction, and Chad Jester, Vice President, Corporate Citizenship, and President of the Nationwide Foundation.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to our esteemed panelists who have joined us this morning. We are so excited about this conversation, and we're going to jump right into it about our work around diversity, inclusion, and helping us build not just, I say we can't become America's opportunity city until we first become America's equal opportunity city, and each of you have some great perspectives on that. Talk to us a little bit about what you're working on in Washington and here home in the district to help realize that vision of equal opportunity for all.
Well, first of all, Mr. Mayor, as I like to fondly call you, thank you for connecting us and how we thrive and how we achieve. It starts with connecting. And so, as you just mentioned, what a wonderful opportunity. My side of the house in the majority, and you go from ranking to chair. I'm a junior member, so you're not really expecting to get a chairmanship, and certainly not on an exclusive committee. But an opportunity came up. I serve on the Financial Services Committee, which is one of the 4 top committees you can serve on in Congress. And so a new subcommittee, Diversity and Inclusion, in the financial services world opened up. And I decided, being from Columbus, Mayor, representing the 3rd Congressional District, I would just throw my hat in the arena. And I did, and here we are. I am the chair, but let me just briefly tell you what that means. Yeah. We started with financial institutions to talk about just what you mentioned, equal opportunity, the operative word, opportunity. In diversity and inclusion, the operative word, inclusion. So if you give us an opportunity to be included, then you can, one, be in the pipeline for small businesses out there. If you are engaged and mentored, then you go from a small business and move up. It is the same thing when we're looking at financial services, Tech America, healthcare, or any of the organizations or companies out there. We want to make sure that there is diversity and inclusion. Now, we're not checking the box. So what we did, we sent a letter out to we started with the largest banks in the country, and here was what was amazing. Can you imagine me sitting in my office and finding out that the largest banks in the world, that their CEOs are going to come and see me? That's because I'm the chairwoman. No, it's because I have subpoena power. And so they did. And we had the hearing, and it didn't go well for some of them, because they didn't listen, they didn't connect us. They couldn't talk about equal opportunity. They couldn't talk about having women, or they couldn't talk about having African Americans or black people or brown people or LGBTQ in the hopper. I'm not gonna dictate to them who to hire. I'm just gonna tell them, when you come back, you better come back with a better plan. One of the presidents, and it's public, Wells Fargo's president, 2 days later didn't have a job. So here's the funny story, and I'll make it really quick. So I said thank you to 3 of the presidents, one of them a hometown president. He hadn't done well on some of the questions, but he had been good about diversity and inclusion. So we're in the green room, and one of the presidents from one of the largest banks tells me, I think we do as much as these other banks. And I said, but we don't know about it. And so 3 days later, my staff here, right here in Columbus, calls and said, there's Secret Service all in your office. There's a president of a bank here. He didn't have an appointment, but he said, I want to make sure that Congresswoman, Chairwoman Beatty knows what I'm doing. So sometimes it's not dictating to people. You know when something's right, just like how you decided. You became mayor. People talk about corporations and small businesses. You decided to do something about it to connect them to the city. So it's in the same light that we are connecting people to women and minority. There's just great consequences if you don't do it. And I end it like that. I don't tell them what the consequences are, but I can tell you the goal is to move the needle. And I am so honored that I can come back to Central Ohio in the 3rd Congressional District and really and honestly say, people are always going to say, what's the end results? We're going to move the needle. I'm not going to be prescriptive. I hate numbers and quotas because they never work for the black people or the brown people or the women. You should never be happy about 3%, 5%, or 15% if we're talking about equality. You know, why didn't somebody say we ought to have 65% as a small business or as a minority? And so when I tell them, I will decide what's a good number or not when you bring it back. Well, people are going to do more. So I'm having fun with it, and we're making a difference because it'll help the economy, and it will be good for the future, and we should never be repeating those awful statistics about women making less on the dollar than their white counterparts. We should never, as small businesses, not be able to dream and be in the pipeline. So, thank you.
The old saying, if you don't know what you don't know, and if you're not measuring it, you don't mean it. So just having aware of and being held accountable for their work in this space. We're hoping this is going to open up new and exciting opportunities for our underserved business owners.
We're talking a lot right now about the idea of an ecosystem. So everyone in the room today is here for one of 3 reasons. You are a small business, you want to be a small business, or frankly, you were put on this earth to help small business. And if you're not in one of those 3 buckets, then you're doing something wrong as far as I'm concerned. At Huntington, small business is big business. And we spend a lot of time thinking about where small businesses originate from. And while we are a bank, and there's a lot that can be said about what's gone on with banks over the years, for us, we really focus on being invested in the community. And to think about an ecosystem, bear with me with a little bit of an analogy here. The city of Columbus is essentially your soil. You've got the small business, which is the seed of opportunity. And I look at myself as a watering can. If I'm able to water the opportunity, it's going to grow, it's going to bear fruit. And from that, all of the rest of us in the community will continue to grow, to develop, to take advantage of everything that a small business can bring to the table. One of the most important things about small business for us is really focusing on where that comes from. At the end of the day, you have one really courageous person that gets up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and forego that every other Friday paycheck, and I'm gonna see how I can do on my own. That's a level of courage that very few of us in this room will ever take that leap. And to actually say, I'm not only going to provide a good or provide a service that's gonna better my community, increase competition, bring a better sales tax base to my community, but create jobs. 2 out of every 3 new jobs in our entire nation are coming from small businesses. So for us as an institution to say we're going to get creative with ways to create access to capital, we're going to make it easier for people to understand how to start a small business, and we're going to be more supportive to them through their life cycle. That gets back to that idea of an ecosystem. Where do we fit into the life cycle of small business? And making sure that we're helping the small business owner. One of the things that is very easy to lose sight of, money that goes in one pocket, then goes into the other when it's small business. If the business is having a good year, a family is having a good year. And if a business is not, a family is making tough decisions. Funds that used to be set aside for college are now making sure the bottom line of that business is continuing to operate. And that's the kind of thing that we want to make sure as an institution we're continuing to look at, to be innovative, and to be, frankly, good partners. So there's a lot that goes on in being I would say, a responsible partner in an ecosystem, and we're really focused on that right now. I'm thrilled to be a part of that opportunity with the mayor's office.
Thank you. Mark, Smoot is a very successful company with over 6 decades of business experience, not only locally, but one with a national footprint. There are not too many local companies that have restored the dome on the Capitol building and built the African American History Museum in Washington and helping to renovate the Aerospace Museum. Very proud of the reach nationally. Anytime I know our Congresswoman walks through that Capitol, she's proud of the company that helped restore it. What are we doing right now as a city, as a community, to help support and grow small businesses, and where are opportunities to improve? What are we doing well, but what are some opportunities you see for us out there?
That I see the city doing is really setting the platform and understanding the importance of small businesses, local business to the economy as a whole. I agree totally with the relationship of business and family. If the business is doing well, the family's doing well. And that success is very important. You know, from the city standpoint, I think continuing to use your influence to promote small businesses, not only within the ranks of the government spend, but reaching into the private sector where there are a lot more dollars that are there to help small businesses in their continuous cycle of development. I think using that influence from the political side will need to continue. I think the city's doing a great job at that. And I think it's intuitive. We talk a lot about the disparity study. I don't think this city needed a disparity study to know that there was work to be done. But that study provides some validation for what you're going to do in the future. And I think continuing to partner with private businesses, like happened on the crew, and pushing the agenda that small businesses are important to the growth of Columbus. That's it.
It's a great point, Mark. You know, for me, and I know for Joyce and other great public leaders, this public-private partnership, and certainly for the county commissioners, is much more than about soccer and a soccer stadium. It was about affordable housing and a minimum of minority participation at 30%, you know, which is really transformational for a public-private partnership of its type here in this community. And so glad that you all are helping to lead the way on that important development. It's going to have a huge impact for families throughout the community. So Chad, we talk a lot about the Columbus Way, where we do public-private partnerships. We argue better here than anywhere else in the community. How does Nationwide leverage the Columbus Way to create an inclusive community?
Thanks, Mayor. So Nationwide's a longtime employer here in Columbus, be considered a large employer. We support, partner with small business and provide products to small businesses so they can be successful. The commonality we all have is workforce, right? Where are people coming from who can help all of our businesses be successful, not just for today, but for the future. And as the Mayor talked about, the Columbus Way, something we talk about, and that's about partnerships, right? It's between the public sector, private sector, education community, nonprofit sector. And if we're going to be an inclusive economy here in Columbus, we've got to really pay attention to the 1/3 of our county residents who are at 200% of poverty and below, and make sure they have opportunities in the future to be part of a vibrant workforce in the future. So we need to partner together in all the sectors to make sure every child stays in school and reaches high school graduation and has an opportunity for that next step of education, training, military, whatever their choice may be. We've got 1 in 10 of our residents were born outside of the United States, which is reflective in the Columbus City Schools with the kids speaking over 100 different languages. So our economy and our workforce is changing. If we don't partner together the way only Columbus can in the Columbus Way with all the sectors, we're really going to be struggling with workforce of the future. And we're going to be talking about diversity. Joyce, I love your comments about let's not go for numbers. Let's be better than that, right, in the whole scheme of things. But our workforce here in Columbus is going to change when we think about the young people who will be entering the workforce within the next decade, and we've got to be ready for it. And we don't view it at Nationwide as City Hall's responsibility, Congress's responsibility, the states. It's got to be this partnership, Mayor, of the Columbus Way pulling together if we're going to be ready for today and for the future.
So, Congresswoman, I know at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation a few weeks ago, their annual legislative conference, you helped to lead an entire workshop, dedicated to business, economic development, and wealth creation. In particular, you hosted a session called Money, Wealth, and Disparities, Diversity and Inclusion Matters. Talk a little bit about that track, that focus, and how the Congressional Black Caucus is helping to focus on these issues around diversity, inclusion, and opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mayor. This is something that's very dear to my heart. We now have 55 members, the largest number that we've ever had in the Congressional Black Caucus. We actually make up the largest caucus. So that gives us a lot of power when we connect ourselves together. So I've had the opportunity for the last 6, 7 years to host a workshop. And you know, in your first year, you're all excited, kind of like you, Mayor, when you first did this. Now we're in red chairs and we're up on a stage. Well, we decided to be consistent, because it's so important to have a consistent, strong message. And one of the things I thought about was, let's talk about money. You know, small businesses or poor people or people who are isolated oftentimes get uncomfortable talking about money. Well, you need to not do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to borrow from you, Maggie. If you're in this room and you're afraid to talk about money, then I think you're in the wrong room and you're in the wrong business. So you have to talk about money, and you have to understand what wealth really is. But then you have to be realistic to know that there are disparities. And so we put a tagline on each year. And this year, because of my role with diversity and inclusion, we thought we would include that. Now, Mr. Mayor, you'll be very proud that we had some hometown folks. We had Dr. Derek Hamilton at The Ohio State University, who is a professor and actually is a researcher and studies the numbers. But let me bring it more in focus with why the audience is here today. We had John Rogers, who started out as a small business person, who came to me early on. He's an asset manager. And John said to the whole committee that on my staff, you should stop talking about minority procurement only. Because while that's good, it's something that will hold you back. You should go into the Huntington Banks. You should go into the Nationwides and the JP Morgan Chases and any of the other companies, and you should start talking about business diversity in my role. So we brought that to the workshop. We also had a millennial there, a young brother who's got a thriving future, but he had never been in the room with people like you, Chad, or Mark, or you, Mayor, or Maggie, or all the folks out in the audience. So we gave him exposure. And then to make sure that the message was communicated, we put Dr. Michael Eric Dyson as the moderator to dice it up a little bit. But here was the outcome. And this is a message to folks out here at home. One of the things that John said we should start talking more about is business diversity. It's okay to be at the bottom. It's like when people walk in and they say, oh, I've increased the number of women or African American or other minorities in hiring, and then you find out they're all at the entry-level jobs. Now, we're thankful for that, but we're not grateful for it. And you have to understand the difference of being thankful and grateful. Too often, minority businesses are grateful for getting something that they really shouldn't be grateful for, because you don't know what's up here. So John and others had told us we should talk about business diversity. We should walk in and say, who are your asset managers? We should walk in and say, who are your CPAs and who are your lawyers? Because those contracts are not always bidded. Those are the contracts because you know somebody, because you're in this room. Part of why you do this, you put people in the room to get to know one another. So take advantage of that. And that's what we do with the Congressional Black Caucus. We connect people. We rise up together. And it's a platform that's amazing. We have some 400 or 500 people who come into our workshop and they don't leave. We have another 100 people standing in the back of the room and another 100 people in the hallway waiting to get in so they can connect. And it's important to us, and we do it to talk primarily about minorities, and more specifically, African Americans and women, because we want to make sure that we are starting with the disparities. And I don't need to repeat them. You know what the disparities are. You know we're not doing well enough with this. we don't have limitations in that room. So we kind of tell it like it is. And for those who know me, you know, we put a lot of emphasis on what we should have. And then we bring the experts with the data and the research, the McKinsey group and others. In government, we don't leave government out. We brought in the GAO office to our committee, the Government Accountability Office. So they would be able to tell us what we should impart to you. Lastly, how it helps you. It helps you as small businesses to get the information and to know that there are people who are fighting for you, standing up for you, and we give you the tools to go back to your business. And when you're doing those contracts, you have to know what to ask for. You have to know how much money they've given out before to other people who weren't minorities. Don't accept taking a minority pot. There should not be a minority pot. There should be a small business pot. There should be a pot for those who are achieving. And just think about it. You've got all the control on your side. More small businesses married and merged together make the big numbers for business. And here's the last thing, Mr. Mayor. It's just like you started out as city council, then president, and now you're the mayor. Well, you take that same concept. You start out as a small business. You don't have to stay there. Set your goals to move away from there, and then you put some other small business in the pipeline. So that's what the Congressional Black Caucus was all about for that weekend, sharing the disparities, but letting people know there is a difference from having some money and having wealth. And that, we have fun with it, but people leave there, we get all kinds of calls, and let me do a point of personal privilege because Kimberly Ross, my chief of staff and legal counsel, and what's more significant, she is the brains behind our workshop. She flew in this morning from Washington to be here, so thank you for being here. And Dominic, if you see this tall guy walking around taking pictures, let him take your picture. It'll end up on my profile somewhere because he also flew in as my communication director. And lastly, Ernie, who is the district director, is also in the room. And together we make things happen.
So Maggie, we've already talked a little bit about this, but the Huntington is such a huge small business advocate. You're helping to lead the #1 small business administration program in the nation for Huntington, and for the 10th consecutive year, Huntington is the #1 SBA 7A lender, and it's now 8th state region, and was #1 in number of loans nationally for 2018. As the bank's business credit and operations director, you oversee a team of over 300 colleagues across 9 states and service loans from $5,000 to $10 million. But here's what I really want to underscore. You offer tailored support for truly small businesses. Last year, supporting 3,462 loans under $250,000. with an average loan size of $59,000. Tell us more about Huntington's philosophy and your leadership in supporting small business and how you've made it into a win-win for both the lender and the borrower.
Thank you. So it's a whole lot of words. The most important piece of all of that is really we just take such great responsibility for the opportunity that we've been granted, and that is that national agenda on small business. So we talked, so Congressman Beatty shares a great point about really the education that continues to be needed in the small business space. As we look around this room, as we look around the city of Columbus, really over the last decade, the 15, now 16 years that I've been in the small business lending space, the customer base continues to evolve. And if we're not evolving with it, then we are not really holding up to that responsibility, doing what we're supposed to do as a steward of the small business programs. And what we found is really this tremendous opportunity to connect with the small business space in a way that we're meeting them in their communities to help them grow. So education around small business is one of the biggest things that we talk about. So for us to be successful, we need to meet small businesses on Main Street. We need to be willing to lend $5,000. I'm not going to come to you and say, let me see your $1 million small business plan and how you're going to grow and hire 45 people in the next 10 days. Sometimes it starts with I mean, it also starts with a dream. Sometimes it starts with a fantastic skill. Sometimes it's, I've been working as a plumber for a general contractor for 20 years, and now I want to go out on my own. And making sure that we provide the seed money to help that get started is critical. But going back to the point on diversity and inclusion, it also means that we have to continue to make sure that we have the right people and the right resources to cater to the communities where we live and work. In the city of Chicago, as an example, I strategically and specifically went after a Polish-speaking small business lender because the bulk of the community there, a large portion of the community there, is Polish-speaking. In Columbus, very similarly, we have a massive population of Nepali and Bhutanese immigrants. A couple of months ago, we actually put on a small business seminar and encouraged folks from the community to come in and learn more about what it takes to go through the process. We don't want it to be scary. We don't want it to feel foreign. We don't want people to feel like they're unbankable because they don't know how to talk the talk. When you walk into a bank and you're a consumer, you're having a conversation about my checking account. You're talking about balancing a checking account. When you decide to start a small business, suddenly people start using words like cash flow and balance sheet. It's largely the same thing under $250,000, which is the sweet spot of where we focus for small business. We talk a lot about the power of not yet. I don't like to tell people no. No is just a point in time. There's always a path to yes. And as people are leaving our branches, as people are working with our financial advisors, as people run into me in the supermarket, I always want to give them a path to yes. Sometimes it's literally, your credit is phenomenally awful. Let's start there. There's a big difference between what you've done in the past versus what the opportunities you haven't had the opportunity to get. We talk a lot about those who have hurt their credit versus those who haven't had the opportunity to establish it. And frankly, there is a path for everyone. And helping people feel comfortable to walk in and ask for help from a financial advisor is really where we start.
So, Mark, and we'll end up with Chad, and then I'll have one final question that I want to get everybody's take on in our lightning round. Talk to us about the importance of entrepreneurship and cultivating that amongst our young people and small business, emerging business, going to the next level, as Congresswoman Beatty's talked about and Maggie's outlined here as well. But there seems to be a real need for encouraging, fostering, and supporting young people with respect to entrepreneurship. Can you talk a little bit about maybe how Smoot has been involved with that, in a variety of different ways?
I think the first point on that I'd like to make is how many of you have heard the axiom that necessity is the mother of invention? For our family and for our business, entrepreneurship was a necessary issue. It was the only way to provide for the family because there was a dearth of opportunities for my grandfather and for my uncle when they started. I think when I think about entrepreneurship for the young people of today, there are a lot of opportunities, and what I would suggest is that you line those opportunities up with your passion and then find an avenue to practice that passion, whether it's through internships that I think the private sector can continue to do a better job to provide, and learn how business practices are relevant to what you're trying to do as an entrepreneur. I think when you harness that entrepreneurship, you realize that you control your destiny a lot more than just being an employee of another employer. But when you are working for another employer, constantly think about the skills that you're developing to be a qualified entrepreneur in whatever field that you're looking at. It's hugely important. But I think, again, the private sector has a huge responsibility to provide that environment to help people understand business practice. Clearly, when you're past that emerging entrepreneur stage and you're building your business, we've heard a lot about the capital and access to capital. From our standpoint, our lenders, our insurance companies, our bonding institutions are our partners. We talk about them as stakeholders, and they know as much about what we're doing as our family partners do. There are no secrets. The people that are providing that capital for your business, they don't want to be surprised. They want to know where you are in the development cycle of your business, what you're facing every day, because at the end of the day, they're trying to help and keep you commercially viable to move forward. I think entrepreneurship is a huge issue, and providing those opportunities are significant, for high school students and college students today.
And I think of anybody up here on the stage, Chad probably spends more time in our schools than anybody else up here. So maybe talk a little bit about how the schools and the Columbus business community could be doing more, things that we should be looking at to create this spirit, this ecosystem of sorts for young entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Mayor. So our schools in Central Ohio and leading with Columbus City Schools are doing a great job. I mean, we've got a lot of passionate professionals in the buildings teaching the kids each and every day at every age and background of child. And with the second language issue in the schools, there's a lot to overcome. So the schools are best, in my view, when the community is engaged. And every building in Columbus has got partners with the nonprofit community. It could be a junior achievement going in and working on financial literacy, which is a vital skill set to entrepreneurship. I think Mark touched on one issue that Mayor, I will reflect in its importance, and that is to give young people an opportunity to see their hope for the future. So we started a number of years ago doing high school internships at Nationwide. We still do college, but the high school internships are really geared at getting the young person in a work environment and starting to understand what it takes to be successful. And it's really the easy, small things. Come to work on time, be engaged, have somebody who's a mentor for you and has your back, essentially. But to also think about the future in a different way. And just within a school environment or a neighborhood environment, our young people may not see what those opportunities are for them. So I'll go back, Mayor, to the Columbus way of partnerships, right? It's not just our school district's jobs to bring our young people along. It's collectively our responsibility if we're going to achieve the inclusive economy that we want for Columbus.
So time for our lightning round. We've got about 7 minutes left here for this session. And I'm going to start with Chad, because nobody can ever follow the Congresswoman in closing out a program. So I'm not going to put that pressure on us, including myself. Today, we've all been gifted with a genie in a bottle who's granted us each one wish. How will you use your power and influence to elevate this priority of creating America's equal opportunity city over the next year or so?
Thank you, Mayor. Congresswoman Beatty is impossible to follow. She really is. I'm going to start with, I'm going to stay on the theme of kids. And I would say all of our young people in this community achieve high school graduation and are prepared for their next step. They see hope in their next step, and our community is supporting them to fulfill their dreams for the future.
I know in our industry of construction, every firm that I engage with is trying to hire. And so if I had that power, I would address some of the social pressure that keeps new entrants from the market to getting good, high-paying jobs, transportation, daycare, some of the social pressure, especially in the inner city. I would ask that genie to appear in the dream of the folks and really show them the picture of what a job in construction can do for a family and the legacy of building a family and kids going to college. That's how I would use the power.
So if we're truly talking about miraculous genie in a bottle opportunity, my kids are really into all these YouTube challenges where they'll blindfold each other and taste like 30 kinds of Pringles and try to decide which one was pizza. In that moment, you're choosing the best flavor. You're choosing what works best for you, what you like the best, and you're not prejudiced by what's on the outside of the container, by what the chip looks like, by where the chip came from. And my true genie in a bottle moment would be for more of those double-blind tests, for people to truly say, this is what I need for a supplier. This is a vendor that I'm looking for. This is the kind of contracting partner that I need. People would never buy a house without walking through it. They would never buy a car without test driving it, yet we're in a world that I know a guy who looks like me or talks like me, and you should use him. And too much of that kind of business is still going on. So my genie wish would be for us to kind of take a step back and really focus on picking the right people for the right roles and the right opportunities at the right time. And all of that would further the business agenda so much more in such a quick period of time.
Hard to follow. I just need to take one personal privilege and to thank, you asked me about CBC, so real quickly, I would be embarrassed if I didn't say this. It's a 2-day event. On the next day that we give out scholarships, I'd like to thank Huntington and Nationwide because they have consistently been given monies to scholarship, and this year we named a scholarship in honor of Huntington Bank for small businesses and entrepreneurship and for small businesses and affordable housing with Nationwide. So thank you. Okay. What would I say to the genie in the bottle? I think I would say single words. I'd say freedom. Let us have freedom. I would say to that genie, let us have hope. Let us have opportunity. And then the genie would probably say back to Joyce Beatty, what am I to do with freedom and hope and opportunity? And I would say, connect us. I would say, let us be able to have Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. I would be able to say, let little black girls know that they can be president of the United States. And then I would say, Jeannie, let's have this wonderful world that we talk about democracy. Let us focus on small businesses. Let us know that we no longer have to fight for the crumbs, but we have worked so hard. So let us realize our dreams, that our companies can become corporations. And let us not forget as we grow to give back. If you are in banking, understand the real meaning of CRA. If you are in private sector, you don't get a pass. Make sure that you partnership with the least of us, because if we work together, we grow together. And then it will be the best company or the best companies that families and children will thrive in.
I do want to acknowledge we have some students here this morning that even with Columbus City Schools being canceled yesterday and today, they and their families and the team here got here this morning. Would you stand up so we could recognize you, the students that are here with us? So to these young people, I say thank you for making the effort and finding a way, and to the adults in your life who helped you get here, thank you for your efforts. So everybody that's here today, young men and women, raise your hands, please. Raise your hands. Raise your hands. I want everybody in this room to go up and introduce yourself to at least one of these young people today and figure out how you can continue their continued success and trajectory into the future. Thank you, young people, for being here today. So an incredible panel, a great conversation, and a great way for us to start this Connect Us conference. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause to our panelists this morning. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, Maggie from Huntington, Mark from Smoot, Chad from Nationwide. Thank you all for being here this morning.